During the summer of 2003, events in the northeastern United States involving a strange, human-like creature sparked brief local media interest before an apparent blackout was enacted. Little or no information was left intact, as most online and written accounts of the creature were mysteriously destroyed. Primarily focused in rural New York State, and once found in Idaho, self-proclaimed witnesses told stories of their encounters with a creature of unknown origin. Emotions ranged from extremely traumatic levels of fright and discomfort to an almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity. While their published versions are no longer on record, the memories remain powerful. Several of the involved parties began looking for answers that year. In early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 24 documents dating between the 12th century and present day, spanning 4 continents. In almost all cases, the stories were identical. I've been in contact with a member of this group and was able to get some excerpts from their upcoming book. A Suicide Note, 1964. As I prepare to take my life, I feel it necessary to assuage any guilt or pain I have introduced through this act. It is not the fault of anyone other than him. For once I awoke and felt his presence, and once I awoke and saw his form. Once again I awoke and heard his voice, and looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I cannot ever wake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden box were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose, and 1 loose personal letter with no envelope. Dearest Linny, I have prayed for you. He spoke your name. A journal entry translated from Spanish, 1880. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand. I will not sleep. His voice. The text is unintelligible after this. A Mariner's Log, 1691. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed, I felt a sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not return here again at the request of the rake. From a Witness, 2006. 3 years ago, I had just returned from a trip from Niagara Falls with my family for the 4th of July. We were all very exhausted after a long day of driving, so my husband and I put the kids right to bed and called it a night. At about 4 a.m., I woke up thinking my husband had gotten up to use the restroom. I used the moment to steal back the sheets, only to wake him in the process. I apologized and told him I thought he got out of bed. When he turned to face me, he gasped and pulled his feet up from the end of the bed so quickly his knees almost knocked me out of the bed. He then grabbed me and said nothing. After adjusting to the dark for a half second, I was able to see what caused the strange reaction. At the foot of the bed, sitting and facing away from us, there was what appeared to be a naked man, or a large, hairless dog of some sort. Its body position was disturbing and unnatural, as if it had been hit by a car or something. For some reason, I was not instantly frightened by it, more concerned as to its condition. At this point, I was somewhat under the assumption that we were supposed to help him. My husband was peering over his arm and knee, tucked into the fetal position, occasionally glancing at me before returning to the creature. In a flurry of motion, the creature scrambled around the side of the bed, then crawled quickly in a flailing sort of motion right along the bed till it was less than a foot from my husband's face. The creature was completely silent for about 30 seconds, or probably closer to 5. It just seemed like a while, just looking at my husband. The creature then placed its hand on his knee and ran into the hallway, leading to the kids' room. I screamed and ran for the light switch, planning to stop him before he could hurt my children. When I got to the hallway, light from the bedroom was enough to see it crouching and hunched over about 20 feet away. He turned around and looked directly at me, covered in blood. I flipped the switch on the wall, saw my daughter Clara. The creature ran down the stairs while my husband and I rushed to help our daughter. She was very badly injured and spoke only once more in her short life. She said, "He is the rake." My husband drove his car into a lake that night while rushing our daughter to the hospital. They did not survive. Being a small town, news got around pretty quickly. The police were helpful at first, and the local newspaper took a lot of interest as well. However, the story was never published. Local television news never followed up either. For several months, my son Justin and I stayed in a hotel near my parents' house. After we decided to return home, I began looking for answers myself. I eventually located a man in the next town over who had a similar story. We got in contact, began talking about our experiences. He knew of 2 other people in New York who had seen the creature we now refer to as the rake. It took the 4 of us about 2 solid years of hunting on the internet and writing letters to come up with a small collection of what we believed to be accounts of the rake. None of them gave any details, history, or follow-up. One journal had an entry involving the creature in its first 3 pages and never mentioned it again. A ship's log explained nothing of the encounter, saying only that they were told to leave by the rake. That was the last entry in the log. There were, however, many instances where the creature's visit was one of a series of visits with the same person. Multiple people also mentioned being spoken to, my daughter included. This led us to wonder if the rake had visited any of us before our last encounter. I set up a digital recorder near my bed and left it running all night, every night, for 2 weeks. I would tediously scan through the sounds of me rolling around in my bed each day when I woke up. By the end of the 2nd week, I was quite used to the occasional sound of sleep while blurring through the recording at 8 times the normal speed. This still took almost an hour every day. On the first day of the 3rd week, I thought I heard something different. What I found was a shrill voice. It was the rake. I can't listen to it long enough to even begin to transcribe it. I haven't let anyone else listen to it yet. All I know is that I've heard it before, and I now believe that it spoke when it was sitting in front of my husband. I don't remember hearing anything at the time, but for some reason, the voice on the recorder immediately brings me back to that moment. The thoughts that must have gone through my daughter's head make me very upset. I have not seen the rake since he ruined my life. but I know that he has been in my room while I slept. I know and fear that one night I'll wake up to see him staring at me. I awoke abruptly, sweat dripping from my brow. I could feel a presence again. His presence. I looked around my room. I know I'm being watched. It's not anywhere to be seen. This is the third night in a row I've been woken like this. The fear is starting to take over my mind. Something out there is stalking me. Something wants me. I'm 16 years old. I moved into this house with my family 7 years ago. It's about 30 minutes outside of town, so we're fairly isolated. My parents love living out here. They say it's peaceful and pretty. I hate it. Not as much during the day as during the night. I've always been scared of the dark. It's my number one phobia. I hate not being able to see. And out here at night, there's no light other than the moon and stars. No warm, comforting glow of street lamps. No headlights slowly moving up and down the streets. Just a hazy darkness. And it's especially dark during a new moon. That's when I first encountered it. That thing. I had a bunch of friends over, and after dark, we all decided to play some airsoft capture the flag. It was a new moon, which made it especially dark and creepy. No light pierced the inky blackness, except the flashlights on the barrels of our airsoft pistols, and the occasional zip of glow-in-the-dark airsoft pellets, flying at their targets. We were all having a great time. I grabbed the other team's flag and was rushing back to my base when I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. A scream of terror, coming from about 30 feet to my right. A flash of white was rushing away from the sound. I changed directions and rushed towards the noise, aiming my flashlight at the source of the sound. My friend Jacob was sitting in the dirt, holding his bleeding leg, obviously in pain. The cut was deep. Another friend, Matt, and I rushed him inside, where we sat on the edge of the bathtub, began to wash and dress the wound. We asked him what had happened. Some creature had scratched him, he said. He didn't get a good look at it, just saw a flash of white. At first I assumed it was just a possum or something. That was before I saw it again. The second time, I was alone. It was the middle of the night. Not a new moon, thankfully, but still eerie. I had insomnia, a rather common problem for me. It was 2 a.m., and I had given up all hope of getting any sleep. So, I went downstairs to the living room and popped in a DVD. As I lay on the couch, my mind lost in the world of the movie I was watching, one of my dogs started barking. I thought nothing of it. Barking in the middle of the night is basically a routine for them. Then my other dog joined in. Still, no big deal. But I noticed something. This bark was a lot more menacing than usual. It was more of a guttural, growling bark. The bark dogs make when threatened. I turned on the back porch light and stepped outside, creeped out. I called for them. Then I saw what they were barking at. It looked like a human, crouched there in the grass. It was probably around 4 feet tall, with bare, pale skin and long, bony limbs. I studied it for about 5 seconds, and it stared back at me. I'll never forget its eyes. Dark, almost like empty sockets. Its cold gaze washed over me, as if it was sizing me up. Then, it slowly started to move toward me. I was almost paralyzed by fear, but was able to get back in the house. I locked the door behind me and rushed to my parents' room. They were convinced I had a nightmare. But I know the truth. This was the first time I had fully seen the creature that would soon push me to the brink of insanity. I didn't see that thing again for quite some time. I started to think that maybe my parents were right, and it was just a dream. I was really sleep deprived after all. But deep down I knew. I knew I had seen something. But a few weeks ago, I was on some website my friend Derek had recommended. I saw a picture that shocked me. It was my creature, the one I had seen. The website claimed this creature was called the Rake, and that it stalks and mauls its victims. The moment I saw the article, my blood ran cold. Could I have really seen this creature? The thought haunted me, refusing to leave my mind. I saw it again for the first time in months last week. I'd woken up in the middle of the night again. Immediately, I felt that something was wrong. The house was too quiet. I felt very unsettled. I got out of bed, walked to the window, and raised the blinds. It was very dark outside. I could make something out. The creature was outside, scratching at something on the ground. Immediately, I opened the window and yelled at the thing. It looked up at me, caught my eyes for a moment, then rushed off, crawling on all fours very close to the ground. When I went out to see what it was scratching at the next morning, I found the mangled, half-eaten corpse of my dog Zoe. My parents think it was a mountain lion, but I know the truth. The so-called Rake, that bastard creature, killed my dog. The last week was a whirlwind of terror. I'm constantly in fear now. I know it's always watching me, round every corner, everywhere I go. Every night I feel its presence, some nights more than others. I don't know exactly what it wants from me, but it wants something. I saw it again, for the first time in a week, today. I stayed home sick. I still feel like shit. I think it's making me sick. I was laying on the couch, watching TV, constantly looking over my shoulders, because I know he's always watching me. I have a shotgun by my side, a benefit of living in the country. I got it from the garage. It's loaded, in case the thing, which I've decided to call the Rake, tries to attack. I knew it would soon. I heard a noise outside and put a round in the chamber. I stepped outside to investigate. Nothing. Damn it. I decided to patrol the perimeter of the house, just in case. Walked all the way around. Nothing. I stepped back inside, and the smell hit me, It was the stench of death, rotting. I held the gun out in front of me, slowly made my way up the stairs, and turned the corner into my room. It was crouched in the corner, facing away from me. It slowly tilted its head towards me. Then it spoke. It was a high, shrill voice. I'm not sure exactly what it said to me, and I didn't hesitate to pull the trigger. But it moved faster than I anticipated and barreled into me, knocking me down. I saw it jump off our second-floor balcony to the living room floor, charged out the door. My arm was bleeding bad, so I grabbed a shirt and pushed it into my arm to try and stop the bleeding. I rushed outside, the gun still in my hand. It was gone. I screamed at it to go to hell. I stepped back inside and saw the blood. Not my blood. Its blood. I grabbed the dog it hadn't killed, Jake, put his nose to the blood. He picked the scent and started moving towards the woods near my house. I didn't think twice and followed. We rushed through the woods. Around a mile away from the house, Jake started to whimper. I sent him back. This was my job. I started to explore the area, my finger twitching on the trigger, terrified. After about a half hour of searching, I saw something weird. A small area of ground that was different. It seemed covered up. I walked over and swept away the grass. I was right. There was a board under the grass. I pulled up the board, exposing a hole. A rusty old ladder led down. Against all better judgment, curiosity got the best of me. I slung the shotgun over my back and lowered myself down. I was in a tunnel. It wasn't well lit. A few candles, but it was lit enough to see the blood-smeared walls. And the smell was awful. I could see paintings in the blood, disturbing things, stuff I never wanted to see. I walked through the tunnel toward the source of more light. I could see a sort of room. When I stepped in, I wanted to throw up. There were animal parts all over the floor, on the walls, and this must have been its feeding room. I turned around, retching, and there it stood, right behind me. It reached toward me. I blacked out. I woke up in my room about 30 minutes ago, alone. No cut on my arm, no blood anywhere. Decided to write everything while it's still fresh on my mind. Parents still aren't home. It's dark outside. I'm terrified to leave my room now. Maybe it didn't happen at all. Maybe I'm going insane. Paranoia is here to stay. I realize what the rake said in my room when he talked to me. It wants sacrifice. Mom, Dad, if you read this after I'm gone, then get the hell away. I don't know where to, just leave this place. It's over now. He's satisfied. Sacrifice is made, and I'm alone. He was with me 3 nights. He just stands next to my bed, watches me, and sometimes he'll whisper to me, He told me he wanted sacrifice. Bloody sacrifice. He said I had to do it. I knew he was right. They don't matter to me. I can be alone. My parents thought I was going crazy. Little did they know. So last night I told him I'd do it. I'd give him a sacrifice, a real good one, so he would be happy. I told them to come with me. I wanted to show them a pretty spot I had found. They walked with me, walked to the rake's hole. I opened it up, pulled out a gun. I told them to go into it. They asked what I was doing, and I told them he wanted to see them. They went in the hole. We walked through the tunnel. She was crying. Then the rake came out of his hiding place. He looked at me with his black eyes and smiled. Then he killed them. They screamed a little bit. I didn't care. He was happy now. He pointed at the hole, and I knew it was time to leave. I'm back home now, all alone in my dark room. I'm not scared of the dark anymore. I like the dark. It reminds me of my friend, the rake. I keep telling myself I'm okay, but I know I'm not. I have the gun to my head now. I'm gonna pull the trigger. I'm looking across my room and he's crouched there, smiling at me, telling me to do it, that he's still hungry, wants one more sacrifice. I'm gonna give it to him. Goodbye.